presenting on case scenario 2, which is to plan an event for our school, to celebrate an aspect of Singapore's heritage from the area around our school. So basically, this is the flow of events. So firstly, I'll be sharing the overall what the event is about, the theme of the event, the purpose of the event, and also an overview of the whole plan that we've come up with. Then next, Gena, my group member, will be sharing on the communication plan that we have came up with, involving our stakeholders, both internally and externally. Next, Humairah and Germaine will be sharing examples of written and oral communication, which we will be using when communicating with our different stakeholders. And lastly, Abigail will wrap up with the presentation with 3 questions we will ask ourselves when evaluating the successfulness of our communication plan and also our group's consolidated reflection. So the event that we're going to plan is called Celebrating Heritage Culture of Singapore Exhibition and Concert Program. It's quite long, yeah. But then it consists of 2 parts. So firstly is to celebrate the opening of the Heritage Corner exhibition, which showcases our students' art pieces. And then this will be coupled with a concert program. So the theme of this event is called Celebrating Diversity in Our Katong Community, which is the area near our school. So we chose this place because we found that it's a place we discovered that is a melting pot of different cultures. That's why we chose this place. Yeah, and the purpose of our event is to cultivate a strong sense of belonging and identity to the school and community, and also allowing our students to actually develop an appreciation for the unique aspect of the Katong heritage. So this is an overview of the overall plan that we've come up with. So prior to the event, we will need to do planning, we need to do preparation. So planning in terms of we have to plan for the flow of events on the actual day. We need to come up with a list of roles and responsibilities, and also preparations that is needed to ensure that on the actual day the event will run smoothly. So for example, things like setting up the Heritage Corner exhibition and also rehearsals, etc. And lastly, we also need to come up with a communication plan where we'll need to, on how we intend to communicate and involve our different stakeholders. So on the actual day itself, which is in the middle, this is the program outline as follows. So firstly, we'll show the entire school an introductory video which highlights the key features of the Katong community, the Katong heritage that we'll be celebrating. Then next, we'll invite the guest of honor, Member of Parliament, Mr. Tan Chuan Jin, to actually give an introductory speech. So this is to get him to open the event, and then after that, we'll invite the principal to present him with a token of appreciation. And next, this will be followed up with 2 performances by our students, both from the dance and choir CCA. And lastly, we'll end off with inviting the guest of honor to actually do a walkabout to view the exhibition, showcasing the students' art pieces. And then this will be followed up with refreshments. So after our guest of honor actually takes his leave to actually do the walkabout, that is the time where we will dismiss our students. Yeah, and then after the actual event, we will actually need to come up with an AR, which is an after action review, where we will need to review and evaluate the successfulness of our event, and also to identify areas for improvement, so that this will be helpful if we were to plan similar events in the future. Yeah, so next I'll pass on the time to Gena, who will be elaborating more on the communication plans. Yeah.
Thank you, Chantel. So now I'll walk you through our thinking process when we were developing our communication plan. Okay, so after we look through the various segments of the events, so just now Chantel has mentioned that there's the Heritage Corner as well as the opening ceremony itself. We made a list of the relevant departments and teachers in charge that would be involved or indirectly involved. And then we considered the modes of communication as well as the purpose of communicating with them, and categorized these stakeholders into internal, which are boxed up in yellow, and external, boxed in green. And then for internal stakeholders, it is easier for face-to-face communication because we know that we will see them on campus. And the advantages of face-to-face communication is that we can address any questions from our opposite party almost immediately or as soon as possible. And we can also make use of appropriate body language and tone to convey our messages effectively. So face-to-face communication will include one-to-one interaction, small group discussions, as well as a different scale of meetings. So for meetings, it can be conducted during contact time where all staff are around, and then we can have briefing session, giving the audience a bigger picture before we go into the nitty-gritty details that are relevant to specific departments and people. So for external stakeholders, because we won't be able to see them physically, it's not easy to see them physically, so we will rely on electronic means. So for the MP of the Marine Parade GRC, Mr. Tan Chuan Jin, we will send him an email of our formal letter signed off by the principal to the secretary and to book his schedule for the opening ceremony. And then for vendors, we will need catering services for our refreshment, and also contractors to set up, to do carpentry works for the heritage corner that houses the art pieces of our students. So emails will be like, for requests of quotations, it will be like leaving an audit trail, and also any further liaising involving details, specifications can be done over the phone and also through emails. And lastly, this event is a highlight of in our school's calendar. So we will upload an e-poster on our school's website to reach out to the general public, to parents of our current students and parents, potential parents of who wants to send their child into our school. So this is the flow chart for our communication plan. It lays out the steps to ensure that all the stakeholders are engaged at the right time. So I'll just highlight a few milestones. Firstly, we must send in the proposal to our KPs to obtain their approval before we move ahead to progress and talk to the other stakeholders. After which, we will have to contact the MP as soon as possible because he will need to look into his schedule towards the opening ceremony. And then as for the CCA teachers, because having a performance is not easy, they will need time to look into their timeline and to rehearse for the performance. So they will be one of the earliest stakeholders that we will talk to. And then on the other side, there's this part on review event plan. It's important to hold review sessions so that any amendments can be looked into as soon as possible. And finally, there's a part on talking to the OM as we inch nearer to the actual date of the opening ceremony, because the OM is in charge of logistics and also security. So now I will pass you over to Germaine, who will walk through the oral communication examples.
Thank you, Gena. So I'll be talking about the first oral communication conducted. It's actually a transcript of conversation between the overall in charge and the dance CCA in charge. So later I'll show you the transcript. I'll talk about the purpose first. So basically it's to first inform the dance CCA in charge about the details of this event. So like for instance, when is it held? Who is the guest of honor being invited to this event? And also to let her know in advance, in case that she's agreeable with participating in this event, to actually allow her to meet the schedule, the rehearsal dates, so that she can rearrange the CCA schedule. And yeah, and also to hear out any concerns, areas of concerns that she may have, and would like the committee to know. And then, okay, then after that, also to inform her that this conversation will be followed up with an email, so as to ensure that the expectations of both roles are being clarified, and also to keep the other overall in charge of this event in the loop as well. And so just to briefly talk about the context, it is actually a one-to-one conversation. It's an informal short discussion conducted in the staff room, and yeah, it will be followed up with an email. So now I'll be showing you the details of the conversation. So basically, we'll be talking about the details, like when, who will And one point that the overall in charge will highlight to the CCA in charge is that we are okay, as in they are okay with the dance presenting the SYF piece instead of coming up with a new choreography, because since it concurs with the idea of celebrating the Katong heritage, and also to inform them about the 3 rehearsals, like roughly it will occur during the post-SA2 period. Yeah, so that's the overall idea of this conversation. Then next, I'll be talking about the other oral communication. It is actually held during the staff meeting. So it's basically to inform both the teaching and the non-teaching staff about this event. So its purpose and the brief outline of the event flow. So this staff meeting, it will actually occur 2 weeks before the actual event date. Okay. So the details of what has been covered during this staff meeting is to inform them about the purpose of this event, so that they know why are they even participating, why even we have this event occurring. And then also the event highlight, which is the guest of honor. And then we will also show them the list of the overall committee, so that in the case of us preparing for the event, they are aware of who to actually look for in terms of inquiries or any form of assistance. Then we will only show them a brief outline flow. That's because you want everyone to be on the same page, and not to like overwhelm them with the details, the nitty-gritty details that may not be relevant to them. So the details will actually be followed up, will actually be provided in the email after this staff meeting. So there will be an email blast, which Humairah will be talking about later on. Yeah.
Thank you, Germaine. Alright, so I'll be going through the first example of our written communication. This will be the follow-up email blast to all school staff, and we are also sure to send it to OM so that the OM can inform the non-teaching staff, because usually the non-teaching staff, they don't check their email. Yeah, so the purpose of this follow-up email is to basically set out the program and deployment list, so that teachers can look at the deployment list at their own time, and then they find out more about what they're supposed to do, as well as to recap whatever key information that has been shared during the email, because sometimes during the staff meetings there are teachers who can't make it, so they might miss out important things that are being shared, and as well as to capture any changes in teacher deployment, because it's a day event, it's on a normal school day. Sometimes teachers might be away, and I know there are other events going on, so we need to capture any information where teachers are willing to change in our event. So basically, yeah, the audience is all teaching and non-teaching staff, and the context of this is basically the teaching staff has already been briefed about what exactly this event is, and that we are basically just following up. So now, okay, this is just a brief, this is an overview, which I'll go into greater detail. Okay, so just to take note, like when we send the email out, okay, we CC it to all, we send it to everyone in the school, but we also CC it to all the different KPs as well as the IT personnel as well, so that they are kept in the loop. Right, so basically the email is very straight to the point, because we are keeping in mind the audience. Our audience are the teachers, are people who are very busy, who don't have enough time in the day to actually read everything. So we keep it very short, we go straight to the point. The first part here, we refer to the purpose. The purpose is look at the list. Secondly, also to summarize key points shared. So these key points shared, which will actually be mentioned in the meeting that Germaine just shared, right? Some of the things that they need to take note when they look at the deployment list. And lastly, over here, these 2 points here. Okay, this one basically, if they need to clarify anything that they don't know, they can ask any of the committee members, and which will have already been shared during the meeting. And basically, any teachers who are away, they need to update either the person who sent email, which is in this case Nicole as well, either him or Cheryl Han. So this is the call to action, and there's a deadline given so that everything can proceed smoothly. And of course, because this is supposed to be a straightforward email, there's there's not much time to establish rapport and all that. So rather we end it off with this. We look forward to your support. So as to end it nicely, to kind of encourage support from everyone. So below we have the attachment for all the details, as well as all the details for the event. Yeah, so this is our first written communication. The second one is actually the e-poster on the school website. So because our event is internal, right? We don't invite any external guests other than the GOH. So we decided to go with an e-poster to kind of inform the parents as well as the general public about what we're doing. So as you can see here, the purpose is to inform stakeholders about the school feature, as well as, because we assume that this is also an MOE initiative, like MOE wants the schools to encourage this sense of belonging for students to the schools and the area and Singapore as a whole. So this is why we want to let the public know. And so the audience here is the parents and general public, and the context here, again, as I mentioned, parents and public are involved, so we inform them. So here we see at the poster, it's kind of like a snapshot of what the students have done for the exhibition. So these are some of the pictures of the things that the students will have already created for the exhibition. And then we have here, just to inform them what's happening, as well as, and then we include other things like details where it can be found in case, like, let's say during Meet the Parents, and the parents come down and they're interested, they know where to look for it. And we also included like our school logo as well as MOE's logo as well. Yeah. So now I'll pass the time to Abigail, who will wrap up our presentation.
Okay, so to evaluate the success of our communication plan, we crafted these 3 questions. So the first one, to what extent were the modes of communication used effective in conveying the intended message? So in our whole plan, we used 3 main modes, right? The first was one-to-one conversations, the second was mass meetings, and the last one was an email. So whenever we chose one-to-one conversations, we used it whenever we needed to give greater detail to a certain individual. So for example, if we were to talk to the MC of the event, we would maybe have to sit down one-on-one with her so that we can discuss the details of the script and also when she goes on and off stage. Yeah, for the mass meeting, we had we shared with you just earlier, we had a staff meeting. And so this is the purpose of using mass meeting is to make sure everybody is on the same page as us and knows of this event and knows when they have to free up their schedules. And the last one was email. We used email whenever we needed to send out a mass amount of information to the entire school population. And on the receiving end, the people who read the email, they know already that they have to take note of just certain details. Yeah. The next question, when communicating a certain message, was the right audience selected to achieve the intended purpose? So did we go through the right channels to communicate to everybody? So for example, before we even send the email to the MP, we should send the email to the school leaders so that they can verify and proofread, because after all, this email is going to reflect on the school's image, right? Yeah. Then, so once they approve, then we can send it to the MP secretary. Another example of this would be really to contact the maybe music teacher to ask for any performances in the event instead of going straight to the CCA heads, like the dance and choir CCA heads. Yeah. The last question, to what extent was the actual execution of the roles and duties during the event aligned with the initial expectations of the roles? So to answer this question, we can ask ourselves even more detailed questions. So like, were there any miscommunications during the whole process of the planning? Were people not clear on what to do? And to really see the result of our success, right, is I feel like when the event is being played out on the day itself, are our expectations aligned with the people, with the things that our staff is like carrying out? So are their duties carried out properly and in line with our expectations of what they were supposed to do? Okay, so in conclusion, these are the three main points that we took away from planning this whole event. So the first thing we noticed is that time management is very important because this is it's quite a big event. You are inviting the minister to come down to open up this thing, and so you do need ample time to prepare everything. So maybe this thing you even have to start preparing from maybe mid-year or earlier, so that you can also plan out the communication flow and channels, and so that the people receiving these instructions have ample time to carry out their duties. Yeah. The second thing is that you do need knowledge of the school culture and ecology. So ecology meaning how everybody works together, whether well or unwell. Yeah. So if we know that these few colleagues work well together, it will be better for us to group them together to move on the same thing, so to prevent any future conflicts from happening. And also, if we know that a certain colleague of ours has like prior experience planning out mass scale events, then maybe we'll put her or him in charge of a subcom, so because we know that he has the ability to do so and to manage the people. Yeah. And so like from what we mentioned in our oral and written communications, we come to the conclusion that purpose, audience, and context is very important for effective communication. Yeah, so example in our emails, right? To the MP, it would be more it would be a more formal. So you will go through many different formalities before actually maybe like getting to the point. But for our emails to the staff and principals, we know that they are very busy people and they don't want to just read through everything. So we go straight to the point and we don't need to put in the formalities. Yeah. So we can also ask ourselves these questions when we are thinking about our purpose, audience, and context, which are: who are we conveying the message to? Why are we conveying that message to them? Why do our audience need to know this message? When and where is the message being conveyed? And lastly, whether we can go straight to the point when conveying our message or not. Yeah. And so with that, we've come to the end of our presentation. Thank you.